There are so many wide receivers I want to get in our starting lineup. Honestly, from now on, we're playing in leagues where we start 3 receivers and 2 flex spots. At the top, you can still start these guys in your shallow league, of course, Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. I actually kind of want to put Tyreek at 1. I mean, the Miami-Buffalo game is going to be so damn exciting, where right now, Miami's actually a 3-point dog in this game, but they still have an implied team total of 25.75 points. Should be the highest scoring game of the week, according to Las Vegas sportsbooks, and you know we want to start as many of those players as we possibly can. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we will go Stephon Diggs at 3. Stephon Diggs, yes, he's in that same game. Buffalo's actually favored. I don't necessarily think that means we need to start Diggs over Tyreek, but nonetheless, still super excited about getting all these pieces in. Now, Devontae Adams at 4. Adams, doesn't matter if the Raiders are complete buns, doesn't matter how bad this Raiders offense is. Devontae Adams is quarterback proof. He's going to go out there, he's going to perform no matter what. Then at 5, we will have Keenan Allen. With Keenan, you have no Mike Williams, and you potentially have Eckler back. Now, if Eckler were to miss as well, you may have Keenan Allen going out there doing something crazy, like maybe getting 20 targets, 18 receptions in a single game like he did last week. But of course, if Eckler is back, then I think you can be a little bit more hesitant. I think he'll probably be closer to the 10, 11 targets. Now, with Jamar Chase at 6, Chase looked phenomenal, but it's not like Burrow's going to magically heal from this injury right away, right? It's not like, oh, the Bengals win a game, bada boop, bada bang, now Joe Burrow's 100%. No, Chase obviously still a stud wide receiver, still someone you start every single week, but still someone that we have to be a little bit more cautious with, just given the Burrow injury. Now, dropping down to our next tier, A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown will be back-to-back. Non-PPR format, maybe you could go A.J. Brown with the big play potential, with the high yardage counts, maybe touchdown upside. Full BBR, we're going to be going with Amon-Ra St. Brown based off of target volume. It's actually going to be really nice for St. Brown going up against the Packers, playing in a game where both Aaron Jones as well as Christian Watson are good to go, because you may have this game just with a slightly higher percentage chance of actually turning into a shootout. Then we'll go CeeDee Lamb at 9. Lamb, I don't want to say he's the boring guy at this point, but you just kind of know what you're getting, right? You're getting consistent volume with this Dallas Cowboys offense. Are pretty damn good. They have an implied team total of 25 points. Not the best matchup in the world going up against Tampa, but it is what it is. Now our next guy with Chris Olave, I am pumped to watch this game. Now, a little bit about me, ladies and gentlemen, is I love watching Jameis Winston play the game of football. I don't know why. I just think it's peak entertainment. Not saying that Jameis Winston is some elite level quarterback by any means, but really fun to watch games where he is involved. And on top of this, if you are looking at his receivers, typically they go nuclear, just because you will see Jameis possibly turn the ball over some, where you have the Saints having to throw the ball with aggression in the second half. Olave's been a wide receiver that's had double-digit targets pretty much every single week this season as well. Now, Jalen Waddle, our next wide receiver at 11, I am operating under the assumption that he is good to go. He's coming off a concussion. Obviously, I'm not sitting here going, oh, concussions, fake injuries, we don't need to worry about it. No, of course, it sucks that Waddle has a concussion, maybe long-term health effects, blah, blah, blah. But does that impact him in fantasy football this week? Nope. This is a rankings list for this week. It's not like he's coming off a hamstring like Christian Watson, someone we'll have to be worried about a little later on. No, this is someone that if he's good to go, you play him immediately. Like we discussed, highest scoring game of the week against the Bills and Dolphins here. Super excited to get Jalen Waddle in. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to keep Devonta Smith. Y'all know we talked about it all last week, where a lot of people were worried about A.J. Brown, saying, oh my gosh, is Devonta Smith now the wide receiver 1 in this offense? I actually had someone in the live stream last night ask us if now we're worried about Devonta Smith. No, ladies and gentlemen, it works 2 ways, right? When you have 2 elite level wide receivers in the same offense, and it's a phenomenal offense overall, you really want both players. You want to start them every single week, but you have to understand that there is going to be natural volatility here. It's not like the Keenan Allen or Devontae Adams situation, where they're the only guys left in their offenses. They're going to get 10 to 12 targets every single week, and you know you're going to get that consistent production. With A.J. Brown, with Devonta Smith, you're going to get the spikes, you're going to get the lows. This matchup against Washington is kind of whatever. And now our next guy with Calvin Ridley is going up against the Atlanta Falcons, where right now Jacksonville has an implied team total of about 23 points. So if you're looking at what Las Vegas sportsbooks are telling us, they're telling us we should expect a big-time bounce back from this Jacksonville Jaguars offense overall. Now, keep in mind, you actually had the same Las Vegas sportsbooks last week going out there and making the Jags 10-point favorites over the Houston Texans. Now, that's not to say that the sportsbooks don't know what they're talking about. They still do, but obviously this is fantasy football. It's football in general. You are going to have variance from a week-to-week perspective. Our goal is to just try to get as close as we can with these projections, and we know Vegas projections are going to be some of the best data points that we can be looking at. I'm fine to bet in on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense having a bounce back. Calvin Ridley still has had a considerable amount of target volume over the past 3 weeks. And if you're looking at Calvin Ridley on Underdog Fantasy in this game against Atlanta, he currently has a pickup of 66.5 receiving yards. Probably a stay away for me, but honestly, in this same game, I actually really like the Drake London for fewer than 50.5 receiving yards, just seeing the passing volume that's in this game. But of course, if you want to check out any of those Underdog pick'ems, you can find that link in the description, in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500 on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers and a Jared Goff special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard against the Packers on Thursday night. Now, going over to our next wide receiver, we will be looking at Amari Cooper. I'm not going to lie to you. I did have Amari Cooper ranked ahead of Calvin Ridley coming into this season. We took a lot of heat for it. A lot of people hated us for it. And with Amari, he's actually been pretty damn good, but I would still rather have Calvin Ridley. I'm going to still take my L and say we were probably wrong to rank Amari ahead of Ridley. Now, our next guy will be Puka Nacua, and with Puka, he is still at the very top of the NFL in targets. Yes, I feel like people have finally come to the realization, oh, maybe he's not as good as A.J. Brown. No, duh. Of course he's not A.J. Brown. Of course he's not Amon-Ra St. Brown. Of course he's not Olave. If you can still somehow swindle yourself into one of those deals and get one of those locked and loaded wide receiver ones rest of season, we do it. But Puka is still a must-start wide receiver with no Cooper Kupp this week, and probably still someone that we are wanting to start when Kupp comes back. He will just slide down these rankings a little further. Now, going over to our next tier, we will have Michael Pittman. With Pittman going up against the Rams, I mean, this Rams defense has been pretty damn good so far this season. Very difficult for me to come out here and say exactly what we're going to expect with this game. I'm going to assume that we have Anthony Richardson good to go. But like we said last week, it doesn't really matter too much if it's Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew. You should expect the passing volume to be about the same here in this offense. And then going over to Deebo Samuel at 17, Deebo will move up these rankings if Brandon Ayuk is not good to go. You know, last week we ranked Deebo Samuel as a must-start wide receiver. He freaking crushed against the Giants, but that wasn't a game with no Brandon Ayuk. Great matchup, though, against the Cardinals. Now, DK Metcalf, our next guy at 18. Looks like JSN is taking a little bit slower to ascend to the top of this team as we would hope. Hopefully JSN continues to get more and more work in this offense. But for now, Derrick Henry looks like a player that we're going to be starting every week regardless. And then going over to T. Higgins, this wide receiver that looked horrendous on Monday night. Everybody saw him. I mean, we had someone in the live stream telling us that he just got sponsored by Butterfingers. I get it. But if you are looking at this matchup against the Titans, we know against Tennessee, you're not going to be able to run the ball. Against Tennessee, you go out there, you air it out. We've seen this over and over and over again. I mean, I'll just go back to what we had last week with Amari Cooper with the great week. T. Higgins would be higher than this, of course, if Burrow was fully healthy. If Burrow was fully healthy in this matchup, T. Higgins would be up there next to like Devonta Smith, Calvin Ridley. Now our next wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk. Very hard to rank him considering the fact that we don't know if he's going to go or not, dealing with a shoulder injury. So it's also not as clear-cut as if you're looking at a concussion, right? Like with Jalen Waddle, it's like, okay, he either clears and we play him or he doesn't and we don't. With Ayuk, maybe you have to be a little bit more concerned saying, oh, okay, well, what? They're 2-point favorites over Arizona here. What happens in the second half if, they're up 21-3? Do they just go, hey, Ayuk, my man, we don't want you taking any additional hits. Stand on the sideline with us for the rest of the game. It's definitely a possibility, but I think based off Vegas projecting this offense to have 29 points scored, the highest scoring offense in the NFL this week, probably have to start both Ayuk and Deebo if we can. Now, our next wide receiver is Mike Evans. Evans has freaking crushed it for us. We really liked this more than 4 receptions on Underdog this past week. He got there yet again. And with Mike Evans, this is a wide receiver that does have a pretty tough matchup. We know this story against the New Orleans Saints. And also, if you look at Las Vegas implied team totals, you have the Bucs at about 18.5 points as one of the lower scoring offenses in the NFL this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we are going to have Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers for the first time inside our top 24 wide receivers. If you look at the route participation for these rookies, it has gone up and up and up and up to the right. I know maybe they weren't quote unquote matchup winners this past week, but still nonetheless, they were guys that went out there and they showed that they were getting more and more involvement in their respective offenses. We know that the talent is going to be there. I'm a little bit more worried about Baltimore going up against Cleveland than I would be with Minnesota going up against Carolina. I think Minnesota scores significantly more points than what you have with Baltimore here, which is why we will have Jordan Addison at 22, Flowers at 23. Now, George Pickens going to remain a top 24 wide receiver for us, going to remain a must-start guy any given week that Deontay Johnson's out. This matchup against Houston, somewhat nice. I know this Houston defense did well against the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, and Calvin Ridley. But, if you're looking at projections right now, you have the Steelers scoring about 22.5 points. And with Pickens, his volume has gone significantly higher with no Deontay. Now, our next wide receiver will be Michael Thomas. This is about where we get to the range where I kind of want to say, okay, guys, there are so many exciting wide receivers we want to play. I am completely fine if over the next 10 rankings, if you want to rearrange these, if you're telling me, Mason, I love Tutu Atwell, someone we'll talk about in just 1 second, I need to get him in there at my wide receiver 2 slot. I'm not going to argue against you. This really goes to show, whenever I was making this wide receiver rankings video, there were way too many players where I wanted to get so many guys inside the top 24. Whereas at running back, it's almost the opposite. At running back, I'm sitting there going, okay, we've just listed off the top 7 players. Who the hell am I supposed to rank? So it is pretty different between the positions, which is why if you are trading a running back for a wide receiver, you need to be charging a premium this time of year. Now, Jerry Jeudy will be that next guy at 26. Jerry Jeudy, pretty good matchup going up against Chicago. It actually should be one of the easier matchups that this Denver Broncos offense faces. And if you're looking at Jeudy, this is someone that's continue to go in the right direction with his route participation. He's a very talented receiver that is another week removed from the hamstring strain. Now, our next guy will be Tyler Lockett at 27. To be honest with you, you can get him higher than this. I wouldn't fault you at all if you wanted to start Tyler Lockett over someone like Jordan Addison this week. And then DJ Moore at 28. I'm completely off of DJ Moore. We were avoiding him coming into the season. We've been saying that Fields is bad. Hell, that's why people hate me, or at least one of the reasons they used to. Now there are many. But if you are looking at DJ Moore, full transparency, if I was ever going to start him, it would be this week. If Fields was ever going to have a bounce back week, it would be this week. You're going up against a Denver Broncos team that's 0-3 that just let the Miami Dolphins drop 70 points on their heads. And right now, the Chicago Bears actually project to score about 22 points, according to Vegas Sportsbooks, where significantly higher than what we're used to. Our next few teams, you have, say, Garrett Wilson, right, going up against KC. The Jets are only projected to score 16 points against this Chiefs defense. And then Godwin at 30, they're only projected to score about 18.5. So that's why I'm saying, I know DJ Moore is not good. I know Justin Fields not good. Trust me, I'm saying it for years. But if we are looking at just the overall matchup, Denver is one that we want to be attacking, where KC and New Orleans will be a little bit harder to go through. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I don't know where to rank Christian Kirk. I think you could put Kirk at the top of the tier above this, or you could move him all the way down to the bottom of this next tier. The reasoning and why we are going to have Christian Kirk kind of in the middle is we just don't know the availability of Zay Jones. If you were to have Zay Jones play in this offense, I will be significantly less excited to go through and start Christian Kirk. However, if Zay were to miss, then at that point, obviously, we want to go through and play him. Now, Tutu Atwell, our next wide receiver at 32. There are 2 players that last year I would have never in a million years they turned out to be guys that we could start every week. Those guys are Kyron Williams and Tutu Atwell. If you look at historical data, We have never seen a wide receiver as small as Tutu Atwell have success. Tutu Atwell weighed 155 pounds at the NFL Combine. I would imagine that 80 to 90% of the people watching this video right now weigh more than 155 pounds. I can't deny, though, how they are involving him in this offense. They are manufacturing him touches. He is the big play threat as well. It's a matchup against Indianapolis that we don't have to be scared about. So it doesn't matter what I thought about Tutu Atwell. It doesn't matter how much of an outlier he is. He's out there producing. It looks like you can start him. Now our next guy will be Terry McLaurin. With Terry McLaurin, really tough matchup going up against Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, just a complete meltdown from Sam Howell this last week. And right now, the implied team total for this Washington Commanders offense is only sitting at 18 points. Now, Adam Thielen will be our next wide receiver at 34. Jonathan Mingo's up in the air for this next week. If Jonathan Mingo were to play, then I think you keep Adam Thielen here. If Jonathan Mingo were to miss, then at that point, I think you can move Adam Thielen up. Obviously, this is a wide receiver that has had a ridiculous amount of volume. But with that being said, if you're looking at this past week where you had Andy Dalton as starting quarterback, that possibly happens again. But one thing that may change is Andy Dalton's probably not going to have 58 passing attempts again. I mean, Thielen is crushed, but it's underlying volume of 58 attempts. We will have Tank Dell here as well. I understand Tank Dell. People are probably going to be really excited on this front. The issue is, I don't know if CJ Stroud continues to be a top 5 quarterback in passing attempts in the NFL. You may have Nico Collins with the bounce back. As it stands currently, I think we do prefer Tank Dell over Nico Collins. But still, we do want to be a little hesitant, especially in a matchup going up against Pittsburgh. Now, our next guy will be Gabe Davis. And with Gabe Davis, I actually kind of want to play him over Tank Dell. I kind of want to play him over Adam Thielen. I kind of want to play him over Terry McLaurin. I kind of want to move Gabe Davis to the top of this tier. Gabe Davis, extremely volatile option though. But the reason I'm excited is going up against Miami. This has the highest shot of turning into a shootout than any game this week. Has the highest over-under. I want as many pieces we can get in here. And yeah, if you're looking for a touchdown, if it's a non-PBR format, Gabe Davis is probably your guy here. And then Christian Watson, our last wide receiver. I wanted to throw him on, and I wanted to reiterate, you know that I've been going through and I've been saying, you know what? We probably should buy Christian Watson, I love Watson long-term. I love his upside. But realistically speaking, to play him, his first week back dealing with a hamstring and a short week going up against the Lions on Thursday night, probably not something that we're too excited for. I still want to go out there and target Christian Watson for the long-term play. I expect in week 5, Christian Watson will be significantly higher in these rankings than he is currently. But for now, I think that we wait, see him play, and then we start him the week after. But I think that's all I have for you this week. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you have not done so already, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you want to check out any of those pick'ems on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description, in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500 on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, you're going to get our rest of season fantasy football rankings. And you're going to get a Jared Goff special pick'em, more than less than half a passing yard against the Packers on Thursday night. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you and really hope we get to see you in the live stream later tonight.